1994. Another 8-2 year. Don't you just missed the playoffs. But a lot of success, and let's just kind of start off. I was looking through the West Side Saga. I see about 51 varsity players, 18 freshmen. So numbers are a little bit higher, maybe than at least on picture day, a little bit higher than what they are, but still in that ballpark, a good number.
Yeah, our numbers were actually up. I mean, I think they were feeding off the success that we had, in 90 and 91 and 92 and 93. Like kids were coming out and staying out and buying into the program. And 94 was a very good year. I mean, we scored a lot of points and didn't give up many. And, unfortunately, we let two games get away that were very manageable, and missed out on the playoffs. But a lot of good players and really a good year.
And we'll talk about some of those games. We see Dan Cipriano, who we talked to a couple weeks ago, Bill Miller, Paul Lamongi, all have appeared on the podcast in some form or fashion so far. Del Baccio. Which Del Baccio is this?
That's Todd.
Okay. And what little bit on
Todd?
That's Dave's older brother.
That's Dave's older brother. Played with Mick and Bill Miller.
Okay.
Graduated with them, and he came to me and wanted to help, and he was a good fit.
Okay. We see Pope, Steve, been on the podcast, Zielinski, yourself, Mick, Joe Wilson, one of my personal favorites, Gary Vivacqua. So is Gary freshman coach, varsity coach at this time?
He was a freshman coach,
okay.
And he was another one from that mixed senior year.
Okay.
So Botch and Mick and Mills and Gary Vivacqua were all part in of that 86 season, and so was who I don't think were on staff then, or but did a stint on staff. Dennis Bellish and
the day that we were running 90-40s. That's how fast it goes. I told the seniors yesterday when I talked to them, that's how fast it goes. It's a blink and it's gone. In the letter that I give to the seniors every year, it ends with, we've won, we've lost, we've laughed, we've cried, we've sweated together. There's no greater basis for friendship. As I watch you guys take the gym when we're lining up, I see that. I see the basis of friendship there. And I want you to know something here, and I'm not real good at this. Not real good at hanging my heart on my sleeve. And sometimes I have a hard time saying things, but I want you to hear this. When I talk about no greater basis for friendship, we're going to lose a friend. We're going to lose a friend of Chaney football. And I don't know if things are ever going to be the same anymore. We're going to do the same things, and we're going to work hard, and we're going to get after it, and by the grace of God, we're going to continue to win, and the tradition will live on. But we're going to lose Coach Mick after this game. He's going on, moving on with his life. And that's a big loss to Chaney football. Because he believes in Chaney football. And Mick, I appreciate everything that you've done. And I'll tell you in front of this gang that there'll always be a position here for you. You come back, we'll make room. That's where we are. That's where we are, fellas. That's the fiber of this program. There's nobody that works for me. We do this together. And we do it out of love for each other, and we do it out of love for this program. And it's sacred. And I want you to think about this, because a coach told me this when I was in college. Some of you, when this is all over, today, and it may be the last time some of you lift the shoulder pads over your head again in your life. You owe it to yourself, to each other, to this program, to make that a great memory. To make this last effort a great memory. Things change. Unfortunately, things change. I wish they didn't change. I wish that I could wake up every single morning to that feeling we had at Boardman. To that feeling we had at Rand. To the feeling that we had a couple of years ago when we hadn't beat Fitch for years and years and we beat them. I wish I could put that in a bottle and open it up and share it with you every single day. But things change. And people move on, and we have to move on. And I'm telling you, don't sell yourself short. Don't come off of this field tonight without leaving every single fiber that you possess in your body on that field. We owe that to the seniors. We owe that to Coach Mick. Get it done, fellas. We committed to 8-2. 8-2 is the only thing we'll settle for. Play Chaney football. Let's go.
Back in from the previous year, but so there's a core of guys from that 93 season that are back. Gardner, your tailback, is gone. But you have some familiar faces. How did you feel going into this season?
Speaking to the lineman aspect, we had some linemen. We had the Smith brothers, and we had George Bear, and invariably
Velasquez. I remember Velasquez's name. Farina would have been a lineman as well.
And Farina, so we had the makings of a good offense and defensive line, as well as some excellent skill people. We were real excited going into the year, and when you lose that opener by an extra point, it could put a damper. But to rebound and bounce back and win in the same fashion the next week against Boardman really helped out. And unfortunately, we went to Canton to a well-coached, good football team and lost 7-0. Didn't have Morgan under center, had a couple other injuries, and just didn't play well enough to win. But I thought I thought as a football team we were good enough to win that game. It just didn't happen. And as a result of that, I'm looking at the stats here, and we scored 196 points and gave up 54 on the year.
It's actually wrong.
Okay.
If you add it up, it's 44 points.
Okay.
Which is because that's what I was looking at when I was going through some of my notes, like.
So you're talking about averaging 4 point.
Yeah, ridiculous.
Yeah.
I didn't even count how many shutouts are on there. You got 1, 2, 3, 4. You got 4 shutouts.
Yeah, we blew through the city.
Yeah.
And like I said, the Canton game really got away from us, and even being a bit undermanned, we I thought we could still win. Poor John Cook, I ran him like a greyhound. I mean, and he was just running hard. But they were like I said, a good football team, and they were coached by a legend, Kleinenfelter.
Yeah, we'll get to that one because I think that could be a good conversation there. One question I do have on this Fitch game, Hartman leaves, Jack Kenny comes in.
Yeah,
And this is tongue in cheek, but not. Were you happy to see Hartman going? not not like you didn't like him, but he was pretty good.
yeah, he was, and what they did was so consistently good on both sides of the ball, and I have the utmost respect for Dave Hartman. Was I happy to see him leave? Sure, absolutely. Because I knew the type of coach he was, the type of guy he was, and what a job he did there. And there was obviously carryover. No disrespect to Jack, but there was carryover from Dave with that team. And I believe and we lost maybe by a field goal the following year to Fitch. But in both cases, the kicker was the kid that I played at Chaney with, the linebacker, Jim Calcagni, was his son.
Oh, okay. Well, see, I know. So this is interesting because that would be a common opponent. We played Fitch mid-year at Ursuline, and they had Stanek, they had Cato, big tackle, Cormel. I forget who the quarterback was, but I do remember him. But the dynamics started to change a little bit, and especially going into which would have been my senior year '95 season. I don't know, the edge of what Fitch seemed to be a couple years previously, it changed a little bit.
Yeah, well, Jack ran the defense, and he came from the defense side of the ball, and I don't think anyone at that point could come in and run the wing T the way, Dave Hartman coached it.
Yeah.
And Dave learned from Keith Wakefield.
Yeah.
Or learned together, I should say. But they had high expectations with Jack, and
Hey, how long was he there? 2-3 years?
Yeah, it wasn't long.
And he was. I don't think he was a teacher either. I don't think he was. But
no, could be if 93 or 94 was his first year. 94 his first year. He was 96. He wasn't there.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he worked at GM. Maybe he was a guy that you.
Yeah,
He could tell you how to.
No.
So Kenny takes over, and I just thought this was funny. He says, he's quoted in a paper. He says, "There's a point where he says he was wondering why he was doing this. I felt like I should have been up there with Hartman criticizing the game." And
maybe that was a shot at Dave. I don't know.
Well, then he goes on to talk about, if he has a group of kids that he has and the players that he has, they rallied in the second half, and he's like, that's why, he was proud of his guys. Very defensive battle, certainly. I'm assuming at that point in time they're running the 50 and doing their thing that they've did forever, and sliding it, bringing those ends, outside backers.
Right, right. And I'll say this, if we scored 13 points in the first two games, you know, obviously we weren't where we needed to be offensively. Okay, and I'm saying we should have been better. We should have definitely been better with the linemen that we had, and with Warga returning under center, and with Cook and Steve Clinkscale in the backfield. Along with others.
How many of those guys? And I just asked this. How many of those guys were going both ways? Your linemen. Your Farinas, Smith brothers, Velasquez.
Well, Farina obviously was. He was inside linebacker, and that's where he made his biggest mark in center. And then the Smith. I think one of the Smiths went two ways, and they both might have. George Baird did. Velasquez did. I'm sure that I'm probably missing someone, but
well, and the reason I asked that is because
Nate Moncrief.
Okay. What did he play on offense?
He played fullback.
Well, I was going to ask that because later against Rain or East or something, he scores 2 touchdowns, and I'm thinking, what? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, and that kind of evolved. That evolved shades of the fridge. I mean, he was 6'1", 245, maybe chasing 250, and he was a bruiser. I mean, he was a bruiser, and he was as excited as we were when we started getting some mileage out of him.
Yeah, I'm sure. When it's I guess the thing week 1, it's probably hot, and I'm going to your point of only scoring 1 touchdown. It becomes a battle of wills. You're imposing your battle of wills. Fitch is bringing their 75 guys. They probably got a number of guys going both ways. If it's like it was when we were coaching, your linemen are, running your offense, punting or scoring a touchdown, getting back on defense. That's a tough ask to take over a game that first week. Especially when it was a 3-yard war, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
When you really can't throw it like you can in a couple years.
Yeah, and there's no question. Numbers favored Fitch.
Yeah.
But again, we should have been, and that's on me offensively. I didn't have him ready to play with that kind of talent.
So, and it didn't say it in the article, and I just asked because of what happens coming up. Was it a missed extra point? Was it do you remember?
I don't remember.
Did you go for 2 and try and win it?
I know we scored first. I'm pretty sure.
Oh, okay.
Or maybe not.
It says Clinkscale scores on a 7-yard touchdown with 8 minutes in the first half. So I do think you guys go up initially. But it doesn't really give a lot of details about it.
Yeah. Now that I think about it, they score at the end of the game, kick the extra point to win it.
Okay. So you're 0-1. It says this week, the next week in the book, week 2 is Camel. Do you remember being like that? Because you mentioned it. Boardman might have been week 2. I don't know.
Yeah, it probably was Camel.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Camel.
Boardman week 3. Maybe.
Yep, 20-0 win. Camel has 19 yards in the first half. This is obviously we've talked a little bit about the struggles of the offense in week one, but only giving up 7 points in the first. They had the same struggles. They just made one extra play.
Right.
So the defense once again is looking extremely stout. 19 yards in the second half. John Cook goes 147 yards on 21 carries, 2 TDs, 9-yard run, and an 83-yard run. John Cook had that speed against Camel.
Well,
Vindicator says it. It's a quote.
Gene might have embellished a little bit there.
Chauncey Cook, it says Chauncey Cook has a pick six for the third score. So the defense is not only playing really well of stopping teams, but putting points on the board. And Camel ends up 58 rushing yards and 64 passing yards total in the game.
Yeah, and 3 guys that I didn't mention, Chauncey being one of them, Leroy Arrington, and Terrell Jones. I mean, 3 all-city players for us that were a big part of that defense. And again, we scored 20 points, actually 14, one defensive score, but not where we needed to be. I mean, making some strides, but I think we were pretty one-dimensional. Warga was thought of as a runner more than a thrower.
Mm-hmm.
And he evolved as the year went on as being both. But again, week 2, although we made some progress, we weren't where we needed to be offensively.
Okay.
Yeah, and to get out of there 20-0. I mean, we were feeling pretty good about where we were.
Okay. So you go into week 3. Now, I remember being at this game, and I can't remember. Would you guys have played on a Thursday night, maybe?
No, I doubt it.
Then we might have played on a Thursday, because I remember it wouldn't have been a Saturday. Or maybe we played on a Saturday, but
it was a Friday night. I remember the game. Yeah,
Yeah.
I remember. I remember the overtime. And Rosa was a good kicker.
Mm-hmm.
And when we scored, after they scored first in overtime. And then we tied it up. They missed their extra point. We tied it up 6-6, and then Rosa come out to. The stadium went crazy. I mean,
I remember. At that point in time, Boardman. I think then Boardman was everybody's rival.
yeah.
I think during that run, everybody looked at them as the most hated, the villains of of the area, right? Them, Mooney. There were some good players on that side of the ball. Rovnak, Durkin, Preston Timms, Massey. I forget who the quarterback was. If I heard it, I would know. It's not mentioned in here. But I remember that just being, fighting a phone booth.
Yeah.
And so
now think about how we lost to them in, was it 93? You could edit this out, right?
Yeah. Boardman was 11-6. No, 7-6. There you go. 7-6 the year before.
Yeah, because that's in 93 when we played Boardman. We were going in to win it. It was
Right.
7-6,
Right.
and Ron Morga reached over,
Right.
and the ball got knocked out of his hand
To get the first down or to get it
to score
get
a
it
touchdown.
in. Okay.
Yeah.
So 54 plays. You run 54 plays for 168 yards. Boardman runs 47 plays for 167. Warga, the note at the end of the game. So Boardman gets the ball first, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
They score, miss the extra point, which ironically, now I know their kicker that year was a junior, all SVC. So him and I were the only two juniors to make all SVC that year. And I think he went on to YSU. I think his name was Good. Ravenna, 14-13 win there.
The thing I remember about Ravenna is your Uncle Red walking on the roof up there. I mean, they had to get to the press box. They had to walk on this overhang roof. Oh my God! And I looked up before the game, and Pope was talking to me on the phones.
Somebody had to be helping him.
I don't know. But
how did he get up on the roof?
Well, I think there were steps to get to one point, and then, but to get into the visitors' side of the press box, you had to kind of lean out and walk. Oh, it wasn't good. But
was he just? Was he kind of just watching, observing? He wasn't on the phone with you at the time or whatever.
Oh no.
He should have stayed on the sidelines that game.
He should have. Fortunately, nothing happened. And the hero, I think the hero in that game, if I could remember, was Eddie Nelson. Eddie Nelson made a big catch for us.
You are right.
And
so there's I didn't write it down. Their tailback, Ravenna's tailback, he pops 2 runs. Ravenna goes up. They get the lead, 17-yard run early. Ravenna, you score. Then Ravenna goes up 13-7 on a 45-yard run by their tailback. And then Eddie Nelson tied it up. Then Ravenna goes up, and you put it away. 35-yard touchdown pass.
Yeah.
Eddie Nelson. What did he? Was he a wingback split?
He was a wide, split end wide receiver. I mean, could play either wingback or split end, and he did a really good job for us. I mean, he made quite a few plays for us.
Then you go into Wilson, and Wilson, at least from the comments in the lead up from the Vindicator, says they're trying to get to 4-1, or they are 4-1. So it probably sounds like they're going to come into this game fired up. Hey, we're finally going to get Chaney, and the whole everything that would come along with that. And you pull up 23-0 win.
Yeah, and probably in the back of my mind, thinking, we talked about this TV game that when I was in high school, and we played Wilson, and it was the same type of scenario.
Yeah.
And we waxed them 27-0, and Red was actually pissed after the game because it wasn't big.
Wasn't enough.
Yeah, I mean, and so I'm guessing, like I said, that was probably in the back of our mind, and but feeling good, obviously, shutting them out and scoring 23 points.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't seem like it was a blowout. But Klink scores 2 touchdowns. Steve Klinkscale. Clyde Morgan scores on a 48-yard touchdown run. Cook has 19 for 83. So it kind of seems like
Getting more people involved.
Well, yeah, getting more people involved. It seems like even though you get Wilson 23-0, I mean, if you're really waxing him and laying it to him, it seems like there was at least some fight put up, and
sure.
And then Warga goes 5 of 7 for 85 yards in the passing game. Then Canton Central Catholic. So that's a 7-0 loss. They are third in the AP at the time. So they're, you're ranked third in the Vindy Big Schools pool. So the local Big Schools pool. Thoughts going into that game. Canton Central Catholic currently is a tradition-rich school. Won a state title 4 or 5 years ago. Is that kind of the similar dynamic that you're going into back in '94?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, Kleinenfelder was the coach, and he, I don't know if they named the field after him then or before then or whatever, but we knew going there it was going to be, a tough physical football game, and I think when we realized that we weren't going to have our quarterback, or it didn't look likely to have him, it kind of put a damper on us. Defensively, we played lights out. I mean, there's no question.
Yeah.
Offensively, that Ron was starting to be able to throw the ball as well as run the ball. So missing his legs and his arm, that's like losing 2 guys.
Yeah.
2 offensive elements, and he was really, really sick with the flu, and
is that when he came down and took a snap or something?
Yeah, he couldn't get out of bed, and his dad called me and said, "Coach, he's not able to even." I said, "Listen, it's the last work day." I said, and but if I even have a thought of using him, he's got to at least come down and get a snap.
Then I'm assuming you go to East Liverpool. You win 32-3. Klinkscale scores 3 touchdowns on 24 yards, 30 yards, and 67-yard run. Was he getting time at tailback, or was he exclusively fullback, or mix?
Mix.
Okay.
Mix.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he had 8 carries for 155. John Cook has 18 carries for 117. Totally, you go 42 carries for 309 yards. And then Ferguson But Ferguson passed to Chauncey Cook for 26 yards. Would that have been a double pass, or was that
Circle C.
was he playing quarterback?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Ferguson?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was cleanup time at the end.
Okay. Okay.
And
Okay. Circle seam.
Circle seam, and so it would have been 26-3 at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Morgan scores on a 2-yard run. In the first half, they never got past the 40, their own 40, and there were no first downs in the first half. So once again, your defense is stepping up and doing what it needs to do. It says offensively, and I don't know what they define as threat. It says offensively, the Cowboys threatened 5 times in the first half and couldn't get it in. I don't know what the reporter exactly means, but seems like there was some progress, but just not able to finish drives.
Yeah, and I can't emphasize enough how critical of a time that was, because that's about the time when, if your kids aren't bought in, they start maybe thinking, well, you know what, we're just not real good offensively, and they start questioning. But I tell you what, credit to them, to the kids. They don't blink. They went out. They put themselves in a position to make the playoffs and make a run, but it just wasn't in the cards.
Is this the game where Kleinfelder talks to you about, like, he's not doing well and his health is this? I remember this conversation.
Yeah,
he's the head coach at Canton Central Catholic.
Right, and he had some form of cancer, and Jim Tressel called me before, during the week, and said that they're not giving him much more time. And when I met him on the 50 before the game, he talked like in terms of he was getting ready to check out.
Then you go to Rayan. You start talking about in the notes. It starts talking about the fifth consecutive title in '93. You broke the record. Nobody had 4 consecutive previously, so now you're going for 5. And it just talks about how dominant the defense was. To be honest with you, third quarter, Rayan had 3 offensive plays.
Yeah.
7 carries for minus 16 yards in the first half. Farina had 3 picks. And it says 1 for a TD, 18-yard interception return.
He was a good linebacker.
Yeah. Do you get under that curl?
He was able to get to the curl. And you know what? The year before, in the off season, he was in casts like this because he broke both forearms power cleaning.
What?
Yeah. He was in a cast like this.
When?
During the off season.
How does that happen?
I don't know. I think maybe there was some kind of defect or something, but it was during a power clean. He went to turn it over and.
Jeez, oh man.
Yeah.
What was the old famous thing? Throw yourself under the weight, right?
Throw yourself under the train.
Under the train. There you go. It also says that he had a 91-yard interception and returned it for 91 yards, but it was overturned by a clip. I don't know if you remember that.
I don't remember that, but I believe if it's there, I believe it.
Well, for a big guy to go 91, get that taken off the board,
yeah.
I'd be a little fiery after that, for sure. Hillis Jeffries was a quarterback, and that's just the name that I remember because he was at Ursuline for a while, so he transferred over to Rand. And then the name Sam Crenshaw starts coming in. Do you remember that name?
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I went to Penn State.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, had very good career. I wonder.
He followed in line with the Powell kid. I mean, they had the Powell kid in '90.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they always had great talent.
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah.
East, not a lot of information on the East game. Any thoughts at that time?
Yeah, it was just a game that we, I think expected to win, and went there and just took care of business. I mean, it was kind of like, and please, this is not any disrespect to East and their program and their coaches, but kind of ho hum coming out of there. I mean, that was. That seemed to be the mood. I think at this point our kids are thinking, hey, you know what, we're 7-2, and playoffs are a real possibility. So, they're looking down the road.
I know East, when my freshman year, there was 4 or 5 guys that chose to be Catholics, and from the East Side,
Yeah.
and they wanted the Catholic education, and they ended up leaving after a freshman year, and I think I saw a name or two pop up on that. T.J. Rogers, who was a quarterback there, super talented, didn't translate when they went over there. Went over there. Then you go to Niles, 28-0. So this is week 10. You, for a number of years, you were finished with Niles week 10.
Yeah, and I think the story. I'm sure the story there was, let's go there and get this one and get ready for the playoffs. As I say that, I don't think we felt we're guaranteed in. We thought for us to have a chance to get in, we need to get this one, and we need to go there, take care of business. And our kids went there in a business-like fashion. And
so at this point, this is this is the game where you are mic'd up in the year 94, right?
I know that occurred, but I'm not sure I remember it. That never went on the air.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
I think from what you were saying, and even talking maybe to my Uncle Pat, was that's when Inside High School Football started, 92, 93, 94, right, in that general vicinity. So I think they were kind of developing some things.
Yeah, I actually got a text from Paul Lamongi from Nebraska that they mic'd him.
Did you see? He sent me the video. Did you see it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The Canfield game in '96, the playoff game, is when they mic'd him.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. I was confused about that. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. They mic'd him because I'm assuming because you wouldn't do it.
But I do remember being mic'd up, and I remember, even though I knew it wasn't going to be released, I remember during the heat of the game, watching how I said something.
Yeah.
Not kind of like playing to the camera or anything, but just
Hedging
being
off.
conscious.
Yeah, maybe hedging off just not being yourself.
Yeah, correct.
And I was going to ask you, like, does that, because I know you wouldn't ham it up, but does it affect you even just a little bit, knowing that it's there?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And I remember that distinctly. As a matter of fact, I was mic'd when, for some reason, a parent got on our sideline. Okay, which was just mind blowing to me.
Like in the coach's box with you.
Yeah, and tapping me on the shoulder. I mean, like saying, "Coach, you need to." And I turned around and I think I looked at. I think Mick was on the sideline, and I said, "Get this person off the sideline." And I might have not said it in those words, but yeah, it was in the middle of the game. I mean, right in the middle of the game, I jump ahead to the year 2000 when Jerry Olszewski was our get-back coach. You know, that would have been real unfortunate for that parent.
He was a handful.
Yeah.
He was the defined get back coach.
He was a defined.
Somebody had to make sure he was
the poor guy for Boardman. That was
the hometown journal guy.
Yeah.
Well, there was a couple other instances there.
Yeah.
Maybe they didn't tell you about.
Yeah, I'm sure.
The band was coming down that year. We were up at Shaw. Mr. Barba, wasn't that the band director's name? Barba.
Yes. Mr. Barba.
He met Jerry that night. 94 is the year that you're mic'd up. You have Mick at the end of the game, and what I was saying that for was because there's a conversation about Mick leaving, potentially being the last game. The kids kind of go through, and so that was
that was the essence of the pregame. The pregame talk that I gave the team was centered around that.
Yeah. He ends up coming back, obviously, but at that point, you don't know what's going to take place.
And did what they had to do.
Yeah. So, couple stats. Niles has 32 rushing yards. So defensively, you're stepping. You're what you've been all year. It says Ron Winfrey returns a kick for a touchdown. I think it was at the opening of the second half, possibly. Morgan goes 9 carries for 52. Cook goes 15 carries for 65. Clinkscale scored. Morgan scores. Moncrief scores. And that's where I was going to ask you, like, what's going on there? You kind of alluded to it.
Yeah, and getting as many people involved, I think, was really, a great shot in the arm for us. I mean, we were scoring more points, and the more people you get involved, obviously, the happier kids are, and so yeah, I would again, what could have been. We're looking for, to the point where I think we met that Sunday, waiting to hear.
Yeah, that's once again, 4 teams at that time are getting in.
Yeah.
4 teams are getting in, and what was the thing that you said when we were kind of setting up here was 7 points, 8 points away from being undefeated?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean,
the 7 points at Canton and the 1 point at
Fitch.
Yeah.
So you're an extra point and a touchdown away from having a 10-0 season, and but thinking realistically, 8-2 should get us in. but I don't think we got the help that we needed. Obviously, from I think we got from I don't know what kind of year Fitch had. I couldn't say that, but in any event, it doesn't matter who. We just didn't. It was close. I mean, we were real close to getting in, but we just didn't. We just weren't able to get over that hump. But I think we could have made some noise.
You know, and that's what I was going to ask you before. You know, I think the difference, and you know, you correct me if I'm wrong. So I was kind of thinking about this. The year in '97, you go to the state championship, maybe not expected to make the run that you make, right? You peak at the right time. You can throw the football a little bit, which is an equalizer for sure in high school. You know, it made me think like, well, shoot, if we'd had 8 teams getting in and you get in, you know, do you make a little bit more of a run because it seems like you're peaking at the end of the year. You're getting more guys involved. You got a few different little, you know, nuances going, and your defense is playing lights out. You just kind of wonder, maybe you don't have the passing game element that you did in a couple years from now, but you wonder, maybe you could have made a little run, could have upset somebody.
Yeah. I mean, look at 2 years
right
from that point, '96.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
We had those elements, you know.
Yeah.
Right.
All City, Warga quarterback, Cook running back, George Bear, O-line, right? Yep. Sean Smith, Jason Velasquez, Nate Moncrief, D-line on defensive side, Scott Smith, Steve Clinkscale, Carl Farina, Terrell Jones, Chauncey Cook, Leroy Arrington, honorable mention, Mike Juris.
Mike Juris, linebacker.
And Clyde Morgan. Eddie Nelson. Sinkowicz Award goes to Cook, and De Niro Award goes to Farina.
Those were the times that I could go into the meeting, the All City meeting, and say, just walk up. They'd hand me the chalk. I'd walk up on the board and say, all right, this is who I want, and
this is who I want.
That's what I get.
This is what I want. So
and just a side note, I'm sure you remember, we voted for all that. We voted. The kids and the coaches all had an equal vote, where we rated the players from
top 10,
top 11.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, top 11, and how the votes fell is how they fell.
Yeah, I do remember that. You had that player survey at at the end of the year. You know, what can I do to get better? Nothing. No, yeah, I do remember that actually. Now that you say that, you know, I think Smith brothers. You know, you mentioned about their dad early on about building the tower, right?
No, he wasn't. He wasn't with us when we built the tower, but he was the gridiron president.
Okay.
Pat Murphy was the president when we built the tower. That was my first year.
Okay.
Yeah, that would have been Butch Frank and Pat Murphy and Paul Lamongi and
so
Danny Turk, Stad.
Okay.
Yeah, but the Smith's father, he was the president.
Okay. And so Scott, in his tribute, is in the West Side Saga there. You know, and I kind of remember a little bit because my wife went to college down at nursing,
Mhm.
and with him and actually Mager, I think him and Matt Mager were good friends. You know, I just thought something should be acknowledged, and his brother was, I think, teaching at Howland.
Yeah, two great kids, and what a great family. Um, their mother Carol was also very involved in the club. Um, but I remember when both kids came up from Volney, or would come up and lift with us when they were in eighth grade, and both real, I mean, bull strong men
Mm-hmm.
as eighth graders, and just how they developed through the program, and the best of kids, and I don't think I've ever saw either one of them not smiling.
How many years did you spend at Chaney? You came
30.
in. Okay, so 30 years.
30 coaching,
Right.
and then 3
right.
as a player.
Okay, so you know, and I remember that phrase, right? I never want to have to look down and see where I'm at. That's probably not the life of even a high school coach at this point in time in society, right?
Right.
Do you feel like, how would you navigate that now, or you're navigating now by choosing not to?
I think the second part of that, I think I'm navigating now by choosing not to. No, and I've been asked, like you've been asked, you know, can you coach today? And I personally, I don't think that I could, only because I was geared as a player, and then as an assistant, and then as a head coach to involve myself in high demand.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what was expected out of me as a player, as an assistant coach.
What do you mean high demand?
The demands on yourself are high.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how people perceive you,
Mm-hmm.
the demands are high.
Mm-hmm.
And I would, just like I was always good with being the son of Steve Burtis.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I was good being one of Red's players.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, one of Ed's assistants, and you know, ultimately to take the program over, and surround myself with like-minded people,
Mm-hmm.
was the ultimate experience.
So I want to say one thing, because you've said it a number of times, and so this is just my perception, and I feel like words matter, and so, you know, a number of times we said, "Oh, can you coach today?" And I think the connotation of is that could you deal with kids today? And this conversation here is certainly kids have changed, but I think if there's a relationship there, you can navigate a lot of that. But there's also societal things that have changed in terms of expectations, in terms of parental outcomes, in terms of playing times and those expectations. So, you know, to me, I always felt like you could probably find a way to navigate the player piece, but it's that other part now that's kind of popped in even more so that I think would be more challenging, maybe personally. But it's not always about the kids when you say, I don't know if I could coach today.
Yeah, absolutely. I absolutely agree with that. There are so many more demands. I shouldn't say that.
Pressures.
Yeah, pressures.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely pressures. You know, did people, when we came in 87, did people expect us to win right away? There's no question. Okay, and I've told you this before, that we put a timeline on things. We thought 5 years was fair to get things turned around, and that came to fruition. But there would I get letters? Yeah, I'd get letters. I'd get anonymous
I
letters.
was going to say, were the names on it?
Absolutely. Some were good, and some were not as good. And I told a parent one time that wanted to give me some advice about coaching. I asked him where he worked. He said, GM. I said, I'll tell you what, I won't tell you how to spray paint a chassis if you don't tell me how to coach. And, although we had an open door policy with parents, if you have issues, you want to talk about your son's fit in our program, I'll discuss that with you, anytime. And it was there were very few of those. But I think today there's a lot more hands-on. And I think you're under maybe a bigger or more powerful microscope than you were. And as you said, I mean, it's the demands. There were different demands when during the tenure that I served there. The demands of raising money. I don't know how much coaches are involved in that anymore. I mean, we had to raise money for the program. A lot of the things that we had and a lot of the coaches that we had were a result of fundraising. And I don't know. I think they pretty much have their clubs doing that now for the most part. And that's not to say that our club wasn't extremely active, but that was a hat that I didn't need to wear. But
did you have to at the beginning? And then I think as you talked about Mr. Jaminet, were you kind of carrying a heavy load of that, and then the connection with him starts, and then you can kind of step back, or was it always?
No, every club president that when I took over, I mean, they worked hand in hand. I mean, I from Pat Murphy to Ray Jaminet, and all the people in between. The Gridiron Club, they started the golf outing in my father's name, that raised a lot of money and created scholarships and provided things for the program, as well as coaches. We work shoulder to shoulder. I'm just saying that I think today the coach is kind of removed from that. I mean, I don't know how much they're asking the coach to involve himself in, and you would know better than I do, but those are just my thoughts, talking to some guys that are still coaching today.
Yeah, and I mean, I know, like, inside of a handful of programs, I think it may be unique to each individual setup and what the needs are, and the other thing is, as we're sitting here talking about it, your demeanor, the demeanor of the program, the overall, concept of the program was blue collar, put in the work, no flash, not bringing attention to yourself. And I think whatever that personality of the coach is probably falls, the team or the program takes that on. For example, like nowadays, if a coach is a little bit flashy, they're probably going to be pretty marketable and have picture days and photo sessions and, social media accounts presenting kids. So, it's probably, you got the nuts and bolts of things that you got to know. Are you good at your job? Can you motivate people? And then your flavor starts to flare into it a little bit.
And yeah, I agree with that. And look at the scouting element. I mean, with Huddle now, I mean, how you don't have to go out or send people out. I mean, because you can get as much film as you want.
Yeah.
And you know, the whole filming process, you know, filming practice and all that.
They have drones now.
Yeah. And since you brought it up, you know firsthand. I mean, and I still am, so I'm not claiming anything. But you know, I was technically deficient, I guess to put it
Yeah, maybe.
as well as I can. Yeah, I was you know, I mean,
Well, you probably stopped learning when you were cutting 8mm films. At that point, you just
yeah, yeah, because you're right. I go back to being a GA in Syracuse and having 300 strands of film on the wall and running it through a splicer by hand, splicing it by hand, putting together offense, defense, and special teams. After you pick the game film up at 12:30 in the morning. So yeah, I mean.
So you're technically deficient.
And fortunately, I was surrounded by guys like yourself and Mick and that you know really knew their way around it and helped us out. You know, I mean, really kind of put us in the digital age.